he's been the one guy, and it's rare that you find a big man on the street that can play like that with upside, Barry. That's the other thing. He's just a football puppy as far as defensive lineman is concerned. So I think for the Saints, I know one thing. Had Ryan Nielsen not been the defensive line coach with the Saints, he'd have probably been at LSU in some capacity. So he'd have been in Louisiana, but I think that was a great hire. Great hire by Sean Payton to bring him in. He's brought a lot of energy and intensity to the defensive line group, which Bill Johnson, it seemingly he kind of lost control of that a little bit. That they stopped listening to him in a lot of ways, and sometimes that happens not only to a head coach but also to an assistant coach.
Yeah, it seemed like that definitely happened with Joe Vitt too. But I don't want to be bashing on Joe Vitt tonight, sir. But Mike Nolan is another great hire. I thought just you see the difference for the linebackers. There's no question that they're not getting beat 20, 30 yards down the field by a tight end or something.
Well, one of the things, Mike, and I've got to talk to him a number of times. One of the things he brings up about, and I've written this, and you saw it, you got to know what to do on every play. You can't guess on, I might want to be here or I might have to do this. And that was one of the reasons why he brought up about A.J. Klein and Manti Te'o, both guys, veteran players, understanding what to do, knowing what to do on each and every play. That's why those two guys ain't leaving the field. I mean, if it's third down, Manti Te'o and A.J. Klein are going to be on the field. And he stresses that. Craig Robertson's another guy, knows what to do on every single play. He's mentally alert, knows what to do. I can say the same thing for Nate Stupar. He knows what to do on every play if they put him in there. Anzalone has made a lot of progress, and athletically you can see, man, he is God-gifted with some talents that once it all starts to sink in better, he's going to end up being a really good football player. I didn't see that in Stephon, and I know him pretty well, and him and I have actually done some TV together, and I knew he was confused last year. He seemed to be a little bit better in the knowledge of the game this year with it, but again, this is his third position in 3 years. Of all the surprises that they kept, it was Stephon. Now, is that because they don't want to say, hey, listen, we bumbled that pick? They tried to trade Anthony in the offseason. No takers. No one. At draft time, they tried to deal him off, and no one would bite on Stephon Anthony. And so he ends up on the 53-man squad. I wish him well because he's a good guy. I mean, he really is. And like I said, I've done three different television shows with him, and, man, physically, he's got everything that you're looking for. I just hope that he would understand the game a little bit better. And Mike has tried with him, but when they moved him to the wheel, that told me this ain't good for him because position move. And now, if you look at the depth chart, it looks like they've kind of shoved him right back into the middle, which I think he feels more comfortable with. But that's an interesting keep for me because I didn't think Anthony would make this football team.
Mike,
I personally thought the Big Hill kid, the former Canadian League player, would take that spot, and shows what I know. But I definitely concur with you on that.
Hey, Barry, can I ask a question to Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, this is Kyle again. You said that Stephon seemed confused. Is this something that would have been picked up in the scouting reports before getting the kid as a number one draft pick?
You would think so. Again, I knew pretty early that they liked Stephon. Sean Payton really liked him a lot. And he had made a lot of phone calls about Stephon Anthony. And so he was a guy that was very productive the last year and a half in college. He was kind of a little bit of a slow starter at Clemson, and he really came on strong. One of the things he told me was that he never really had responsibilities as a cover guy in college. that he was kind of a bump guy. You know, if the tight end got over the middle, he'd just kind of bump him around a little bit. And his first comment to me is, I've never played, you know, where the tight end is on you so quickly in coverage. Well, man, this is the NFL. I mean, you're going to have tight ends get on top of you real quick.
Wow. And
we saw last year where at times where he was supposed to blitz, he would go in coverage, and times he was supposed to be in coverage, he would blitz. And I know one thing, and I'm not trying to take for Joe Vitt, but I know one thing. I bet Joe Vitt was telling him what to do and say, Stephon, do you understand what we're teaching you? And I bet he said yes, but he really didn't know. I mean, You got to be honest with your coach at that point. If you're not sure that that's what you're supposed to be doing, you got to be honest with him. I think he would have ended up being a pick. If he wasn't going to be the last pick in the draft with New England, he was going to be picked right in that range. So he was no reach as far as a player's concerned. The NFL light hasn't clicked on for him yet from a standpoint of knowing what to do on every play. He told me he felt very comfortable at the middle linebacker position. He seemingly did a good job in run defense. His problem was playing in reverse because he had never really been asked to do much of that in college. So this is all new to him. So then you put him at the strong side, you know, you got responsibilities in coverage there. And it's a different look at the field than you in the middle. So I'm a little confused on if you had a guy that's confused about playing a position he's played all his life, why the hell are you moving him around?
Right.
That's the question I'd like to ask. And because if he doesn't know what to do every play, then why are you moving him? Why don't you let him kind of learn what he's got to learn at that one spot from a pro standpoint? Now, listen, that's a big cut from going from college to the NFL. People might not realize how difficult that is. We got a lot of really good college players that can't play in the NFL. Some of it has to do with maybe they're not big enough, fast enough, strong enough. Some of it is they're rep players. They have to do things over and over and over and over again before it finally kind of clicks in their head. In the NFL, man, they're not giving it to you teaspoon. It's tablespoon. And if you don't get it, you're out. I'm not going to spend all this time with you. It's interesting that this club, and to a certain extent I got to give the fact that I think Mike Nolan had some say in this, that let's keep Stephon. I think I can work with him. And Mike's always been a guy that's done a great job with linebackers. I'm hopeful for Stephon that, you know, kind of the wheels click for him because, man, athletically, they don't have anybody on this team at linebacker that can compare to him. I take this quote from Mike Nolan. He told me this, and we were talking about great middle linebackers. And he was like, you know, kind of growing up because we fairly close to the same age. You know, you think about the great linebackers of the 60s and 70s. It's, you know, it was Butkus and Nitschke and Jack Lambert. And you look at what made Ray Lewis the great player he was and Luke Kuechly today and Patrick Willis a few years back with the 49ers. The great middle linebackers all have one common trait. They can take away the ball. They strip the football from the ball carrier. You think about Ricky Jackson. What made him a great linebacker? He was a great blitzer, but when he was tired, he caused more fumbles than anybody in NFL history to that point. Lawrence Taylor. What made him such a devastating player? Not only could he pass rush, he's causing a turnover.
Strip that.
You think about that mentality part of what makes a great linebacker. Now, the Saints don't have anybody on this team in that caliber, but you can see where a guy like Stephon, if the light clicked on for him, could be that impact player. And I think for the Saints, one, it's a little kind of save face that I don't want to cut loose a first-round pick. And secondly, because he's so athletically gifted, the feeling is if we cut him loose, he might make it somewhere else. You know, the light might click with him somewhere else, but you know, he's an interesting player because he is so God-gifted as an athlete. But he told me this in numerous times about that he had picked up this defense a little quicker this year than he had done a year ago. So I was encouraged with that, but you could still see there was some hesitation in his play, kind of choppy with his steps, which means he's trying to read and not just reacting. But those great middle linebackers, even today, when you look at it, the one cut between them and a good player, they cause havoc on the field and they cause turnovers. You think about Luke Kuechly, what jumps out at you? He can cover and come up with an interception. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know of a middle linebacker I've seen, him and Patrick Willis, I think, would rate at the top, that can drop back in reverse as well as they could. It's amazing to watch that big man cut loose in reverse and come up with a turnover or a forced fumble. That's unique. That's the cut between that great linebacker and that guy that's a good to solid player in the NFL. That's what made Ricky such an unbelievable player. Sam Mills, look at Sam. He didn't do it just once. He did it twice.
Yeah.
He left here and went to Carolina, did the exact same thing there. When the Saints thought that, we don't want to pay him that much, and we think we can have a guy that can take his place, and it didn't. So it's interesting how the linebacker position has evolved, and I knew the Saints wouldn't keep a ton of linebackers just because you listen to Sean talk and you listen to Dennis Allen. They have talked about nickel coverage, big nickel. So that nickel being 3 corners, big nickel, 3 safeties. Last year, it was in the 60s range-wise that they ran that defense, and you can bet it's going to be that, 65. You're going to see either 3 cornerbacks or 3 safeties out on the field just because the game has changed so much. It's a space game, and you got to match up in the coverage part of it.
Wow. Mike, that's some great stuff. I do have one question for you. This is a pivotal year coming into the season for Drew Brees. What do you think is going to happen with his contract?
I think Drew is tied to Sean Payton. If Sean comes back, Drew's back. I think they'll. I would be shocked if Sean Payton didn't come back next year. I'll be honest with you. Because I think this team, however you want to look at it, even if they end up, back 8-8, 9-7, he ain't going anywhere. I mean, Sean's not going anywhere. So I think if Sean stays, Drew Brees stays. And they have no alternative, no plan B. Now, and we're aware of it now, that had Buffalo kept the pick and picked Marshawn Lattimore instead of making the deal with Kansas City, the Saints would have picked Patrick Mahomes. But that didn't occur because Andy Reid, whoever tipped Andy off, make that maneuver, he jumped ahead of him. But we've heard from numerous people, even people that were in kind of the Saints war room, people at the Zurich Classic, and all was saying, "Hey, listen, had they not picked Lattimore, they would have picked Patrick Mahomes. That's what they were trying to maneuver." But the fact that Lattimore was there and the higher-ranked player, they went with him and had the big need position. So where's your alternative now? If you say, you know what, let Drew take the market. Where are you going to go for a quarterback? To me, I think the one thing this football club has done from a backup quarterback standpoint is taking a step back. I always felt comfortable that if it was a 1 or 2 game stretch, let's say something happened to Drew and he had to miss a game or two, that Luke McCown could walk in and he could play pretty well. And we've seen that. He went to Carolina. It wasn't for a great play at that point in the end zone, and the pass was a little off, but really was more of a great play. The Saints had the Panthers on the ropes the year they went to the Super Bowl. Whatever happened in the meeting rooms, and I do think that his back injury certainly flared up. And anytime you have a back injury, I mean, you